Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to iCar's Repairers Realm. I am Bud Center, Director of Technical Products and Curriculum here at iCar, and with me I have
Scott Van Hooley, RTS Manager.
So Scott, here today we're going to talk about RTS and some cool things there. You know, I always tell people that RTS is one of the best kept secrets in the industry. Those people that use RTS use it frequently. They see the value and they understand it. I think we still have opportunity to get out there and have people understand more of what RTS does for the industry and some of the tools available. And one of those things is this really cool app that we've created.
Yeah.
You know, just give us a little background on what drove iCar and RTS to develop this app.
So it really came from, just the industry. They always want more convenience. They want everything on their phone. They want it quick. They want it now. And that's a lot of what RTS does. So, we're always looking at the training side of things and educating people. And a lot of the articles are very technical. And it's helped get the word out and educate everyone of what's going on. And by having the app, it really allows us to get to that technician that, they're in their stalls every day. They're working on vehicles. They're not at a laptop. They don't have access to that during their workday. And a lot of what we started to see is that if they had an app, it was convenient for them. They could start utilizing it more than they are today just because of that simple convenience and perception, because the website's always been responsive where it would work on a mobile device. But now by going to the app, we're going to have a lot more features and functions that we can deliver directly to a technician specifically, but also your estimators, auto physical damage appraisers. It's just going to make their life a little bit easier when you don't have that laptop handy or a desktop.
It's all about making the information more accessible, making it easier for them to access what they're looking for, right? We ideally, you've got a technician in a stall who has a question, and instead of having to run to a computer, they grab their phone and hit a button, and they're there, and they can ask and find what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
We're always pushing them to go to the OEM repair information, but they don't have a laptop to access the OEM repair information, but they have their phones. So you can get to a lot of that information on your phone, but if you don't know where to go, you don't know how to find it, they're not going to take the time. Where a lot of the different things on RTS, it is 1, 2, 3 minutes to point you in the right direction to help you find that information quickly, and you're not wasting time looking for something that doesn't exist.
Perfect. So let's talk just a little bit about, for those people that aren't familiar with RTS, if we think about all the people that this app could be beneficial for, who might want to use it, let's talk just a little bit about some of the things that are available on the RTS website that might benefit, say, an estimator versus a technician and some others.
Well, a lot of what we started looking at when we started to look to develop the app was how is the current website being used? And we found that a lot of the desktop users were going and looking up calibration search, which was a very hot topic in the industry for ADAS calibration. And when they started going there and looking at that information, again, it's helping you find that information. What calibration events what events require a calibration? So a camera's been disturbed, a sensor's been replaced, you now need to calibrate it, and then here's where you find that information. So we saw a lot of the estimator kind of information being looked up on desktop, and when we looked at mobile usage, it was a lot more of the sectioning procedure, the hybrid disable search, where you can see how to actually safely disconnect the service disconnect on an EV. And so those were a lot more things that were technician specific. They had that vehicle in their stall going, I don't know how to do this. Is there a different way to do this? And so they're looking up more of those kinds of things as opposed to the desktop user. And technicians are probably the hardest group to reach just because of the fact that they are so busy during the day and they're not sitting at a computer where we can send them an email and they're going to look at the email. They're looking at the vehicle they're working on, and they're getting it in their stall, working on it, and they need information now, not 20 minutes, 2 hours from now. They need it right now because they're on to the next thing.
Yeah. So when I think about even the repair planning process, think about an estimator and some of the things that are on RTS. You talked a little bit about the ADAS things that are available. So if we think about an estimator or a repair planner that's working on a repair plan on a vehicle, and they want to understand what systems could potentially be on a vehicle for ADAS, what type of calibrations might be required, and the types of tools and equipment that you need. If we think about that, it helps people to plan better for their repairs. And it's not just ADAS. There's things for EV, as you said. There's sectioning. There are OEM position statements, and all of those things can be found on the RTS site.
Yeah, and it's really, we always kind of internally we refer to it as the information superhighway to iCar. So you're not going to necessarily find an exact repair procedure. That's not what we do. We're not an ALLDATA. But we will tell you, hey, there is information on this particular topic. There is a sectioning procedure available. And then we have articles that show you step by step on where to get it, because if you're not used to, you work on a lot of Hondas and you only work on a few GMs per year, the Honda site, you might be able to navigate pretty efficiently. But when all of a sudden you go to an OEM that you're not normally in, now it becomes a lot more difficult and it takes a lot more time. You don't know all the different places to look. And in calibration especially, a lot of the OEMs will have information in the repair procedure on what needs to be done and when, but they have separate documents that go through all the calibration events that might not be in the service information.
Right.
So you a lot of times need both of those documents, and if you don't know about them, you may not be able to find them within the OEM procedures.
It's all about being able to follow the breadcrumb trail, right?
Yes.
Understanding where to find it. So, all right. So I'm going to stop asking you a lot of questions. Why don't we show them this really cool app that you guys have been working on?
All right. Yeah. So we can pull that up on the screen here. So a lot of this for the initial launch of the app is going to be basically a lot of duplication of the website. So that was something that was really important to us, that when we go and update an article or a record on the website, we wanted it to update in the app at the same time, and we've accomplished that. So we don't have two different sources of information. Everything is fed from a single source, and the coding is all created from that single source. So if we make a change in one spot, it changes on both the app and the website, and it's all synced up. So, that's something that's really important, because OEMs are updating this information all the time. We're going back and updating information as it changes. So that was an extremely important thing for us. So if you kind of go through the website, you can click on the different aspects of it. The collision repair news. These are all those technical articles where we're going to tell you about, what's coming up. The Repairers Realm episode, when GM released their repair insights, this paint maker ADAS radar optimized color resources is a mouthful to say, but that's a great article where we go through and we talk about what the paint makers actually have for some of these ADAS sensitive radars behind a bumper cover because of the paint. And we also have a series of articles tied to that on what the OEMs say. So a lot of that information, again, it's not readily available in a repair procedure. Sometimes it's only a position statement. Sometimes it's in a part of a manual we don't normally go to for collision repair that you have to find it, where we've kind of brought that all together so that you can quickly find that information and you're not spending hours looking for something that we can get you to in 3 minutes.
Yeah, perfect. So before we move on, back at the top of that list, help everybody or explain to everybody, what is a linking pin? Because you know that I'm very familiar with the DEG and the great work that they do. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is very similar to what they're doing, except RTS is linking to the repair manufacturers and submitting inquiries when we can't find the data we need.
Yeah, so that's it's basically a tech inquiry that there wasn't an answer from either the OEM repair information or an iCar training course. And so what we do is we reach out directly to the OEM and we'll ask them the question. And sometimes they will look at if you ran over something with a rock, punched a hole through the floor. There's no repair procedure. There's no general information out there that would really help you do that. And so sometimes we can send that directly to the OEM. An engineer will review it and say, yeah, you got to replace it, or you can straighten it, or whatever they come up with on that vehicle, on that damage. There's also cases where OEM repair procedures are updated or added because of some of these questions we send in. If there was a step that was missed sometimes, because a lot of that content is authored by third parties and things like that, and things get missed. And so we can get those questions answered directly by the OEM. We've had Jerry Benani on here for some of the Repair Realms talking about running boards where the inner rocker panel gets torn out from running over a rock or something hitting the running board, and it tears out just a little steel stud. And so instead of cutting off the whole uniside, you can just section in this one little piece, and that prevents you from doing a very intrusive repair. And it was engineered, reviewed. It's not iCar saying it. It is the OEM and their engineers that came up with that procedure on how to do that. And we're just showing you because it might not get into that OEM repair procedure for years or ever in some cases. And that's why we track everything with that linking pin, and we have that documentation trail. So if you get something from us that are per our contact at Ford or Honda or GM, it is coming from those engineering departments that have signed off on it.
Perfect. All right, we'll go back to the app. So one of the really cool features that I know the app has, RTS had for a long time, it's had the ability to search by year, make, model. Now we can search by the VIN.
Yes, we can. So the VIN to code is something that a lot of people are asking for. In the initial launch of the app, it's not going to be a build data or anything like that. It's going to be a little bit more, here are the different options for the different things. And, everybody always wants that build data, but not all the OEMs offer that. And we'll get there eventually, but it's going to take a little bit of time for us to get to that point where we're going to be able to get some of that. And it gets quite expensive because every time somebody searches a VIN, there's a charge for that. And when you have 10 of it a month, that's not so bad. But when there's 10,000, we don't want to have that cost incurred. So we're going to look at that and try to work with some different providers to get that. But for right now, it's just basically that year, make, and model for that particular VIN. But by doing that VIN search, it brings up the hybrid and electric vehicle disable search, restraints, partial part, all the different things, all the different searches all get brought up by that VIN for that particular vehicle.
So essentially, if you search by VIN or year, make, model, when they search, it's going to pull up everything that we have available for that vehicle. So they see all the resources we have for that vehicle, and they can kind of go through and figure out what they need. Perfect.
Exactly. And, I'll just kind of quickly go through. So the calibration search, this is one that we've had it out for a few years now, and it just, quite frankly, it looks really good on the app. I'm really happy with how it turned out because it's going to get you to where you need to go very quickly. And so if you come down and we start looking at the collision braking system, and we go, okay, there's a sensor behind the front bumper cover. It jumps you down to that. And now the sensor in the front bumper cover, you have to do a calibration if the sensor is removed, installed, or replaced. So right away, okay, I need to get this calibrated, whether that's in a third-party vendor, over to the dealership, you do it internally, doesn't matter. Here's when you need to do it. And then we also tell you which vehicle systems are affected by that sensor. So when we started building this, everybody in the industry was always talking about the system, but the system only shows the symptoms, where the sensor is what you really need to pay attention to. But if you're having a problem with multiple systems, it could come back to that one sensor. So that's how we have it tied there. And then if we jump over to the partial part, picking on Ford a lot today because they're there. And so the partial part kind of works the same way. And we will, we'll go through and we'll identify if there's sectioning procedure available or not. And again, it's just to get you to that next step, that little bit quicker, where you're not spending hours looking for something that doesn't exist. And, that's where a lot of the features in the app, like I said, it's the same thing as the website, but when the app launches, we're also going to have some new features as well that will eventually come to the website.
So that brings me to the next big question. A couple of them. When will the app be available? What platforms is it available on? And how do you get it?
So when it launches, it's going to be the first week of April. So April 5th is April 8th is a target for it to be in both Android and Apple stores. So you'll be able to download it and get it on any Apple or Android device, unless it's, a flip phone. We're supporting, the modern phones and things like that. But it'll be just like any other app. You can download it, and everything that's on the website, the basic content, that is all going to be available without any kind of a login. But we will have a login that's tied to your iCar ID. So if you have an iCar ID you use to log in for training, it's the same exact information that you'd use to log into the app, the RTS website, or iCar.com. So it's all kind of a unified password. And once you go into that login, you're going to get things to save your favorites and some additional features like that. And as we develop those same kinds of things on the website, what will happen is if you save an article that you go to a lot, say the outer uniside sectioning on Honda, they have a great document. And you work on a lot of Hondas, but it gives you that matrix of what steels can be straightened, what can be heated, what can't be, and all the different things you can do on it. You can save that one as your favorite, so it's quick and easy. And then when you move over to the website, it'll be there. And if you change it in one spot, it'll change it in both. So that's going to be something really cool that's going to be coming in when we launch. It's not quite ready today because we're still in that beta testing, but we're getting there pretty soon.
Perfect. All right, so at this point, anybody that's watching live, if you have any questions, on the bottom right of the screen, there's a chat box. You can enter questions in there, and we can answer those questions for you now. Anybody that's watching this on demand, after the video has been recorded, you can submit your questions to repairersrealm@i-car.com, and somebody will answer those questions for you. And fortunately, since I waited until the end of this discussion to make that point, we've got some people out there that are familiar with it, Repairs Realm, and we have some questions to get started. So the first one that I see here is, I see there are just-in-time videos on the RTS app. What are those? So we recently put one out there that was really well received, and that was looking at destructive weld testing. Mm-hmm. So explain just a little bit on what are the just-in-time videos on the RTS app.
So the just-in-time videos are on the app and the website, and they're those technical little tidbits. So it might not be something that's an entire course, but it's good information to know, and we put it out there just to get the word out there. Another one that's been really popular is the Mustang Mach-E. When the 12-volt system's disabled, how do you get it in the car? There's no key. So there's a whole quick little video on that, and it gets right to the point. And it's kind of that just-in-time training that's in the app, on the website. It's developed with the product development and curriculum team, and we host it on the RTS website. And you'll start to see it pop up in articles, partial part. You're going to start seeing those videos as we develop them show up in a lot of different places across both the app and the website. Yeah,
the whole idea behind them is just that. It's that quick, simple information that'll be helpful to somebody in the industry. A lot of times it's literally our subject matter experts out in the shop working on something. They say, hey, this would be something that would be beneficial to the industry, and they'll just capture a quick video and put that out there. Next question we have here is, what if there's not an answer on RTS app or website to a question I have? So I think where they're headed there is about the Ask iCar.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if the cool thing with the app is when you submit an Ask iCar through that, you're going to get priority response because if you're logged in, we've already captured some of your information. We can get your answer that much faster. And if there's not an answer to the question, that's where that linking pin process comes into play, where we reach out to the OEMs. Even a product maker, sometimes we get questions on them. We reach out to them as well. So, we're going to try to get you any answer we can in the industry. Sometimes we can get it pretty quick, and other times there's not a good answer, and the engineers have to go to Japan or Korea or Germany, or they have to do some research to figure out what the answer to that could be. So it could take anywhere from a day or an hour to years, depending on what the question is. But we're constantly following up and trying to get those answers. So, we're never going to just completely forget about you or ignore you. That's not what we're doing. We're constantly going back to the vehicle makers and product makers to try to get those answers.
Yeah. And I know that your team, I'm not putting you on the spot here with response time. I know you guys respond very quickly. With anybody that submits something, if we get to the process that it has to go to a linking pin, you guys are still reaching back out to those people and letting know the process and status and what we're doing.
Yeah, because typically when we research the question, if there's no answer, we're going to send you a link. We'll get some additional information, and we'll let you know that it's in process. And so you're always going to get contact. You're not going to just send something in and go, what happened with it? We're always going to at least let you know, hey, we got to escalate this up to the OEM, or here's your answer in most cases. Because I pulled some numbers, and I think 99% of the questions we get into Ask iCar we have an answer for, and about 1% become linking pins. So it's a pretty, I think it was 1 or 2% of those questions actually turn into that. So, most of the questions we can give you an answer to because the OEMs have information on it, or we have it in the curriculum.
Perfect. All right. Next question we have is, what is the name of the app when they go looking for it on the App Store?
So if you do a search for RTS or iCar, it'll come up. So
Well, that's easy.
Yeah, we don't get too fancy with the name of the app, but it's iCar's RTS app, and you'll be able to find it.
Perfect. The next question we have in this, I get this one all the time. So the question is, can RTS provide OEM repair information? And it's a real simple answer.
No.
Yeah, and that's just simply copyright.
Yeah.
We can't put that information out there. We can lead them to where to find it and tell them if it exists, but we can't actually give that information out.
Yeah, we will, we don't really, we can go step by step, and we have a lot of articles that'll show you step by step on where to find that particular information for whether it's ADAS or sectioning. There's a ton of information already on the website. If you Google things on the website, you're probably going to find your answer either in an article or partial part. And that's kind of really where we want people to get to is, I don't want people to have to send in a question every day to me. I want to help teach them where to find the information for themselves in a quick, efficient manner. And the more we can do that, I mean, the pie in the sky for me is every question that came into Ask iCar would become a linking pin, because we had so much content on the website showing people where to go and what to do. They don't need to even ask the question because it's there. It's a big pie in the sky.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time to get there, but we've already talked to a lot of shops that, they used to use us every day, but they're using us less because we've shown them where to go and how to find this information. And when things change, they only have to come to us when there's something new that they haven't seen before. And I look at that as a win, because that means that they're getting that knowledge and education to get that knowledge and skills and information that they need for that complete, safe, quality repair. So that's what the whole mission of RTS is really helping drive that, because the training is how to do something, but this is how or where and why you need to go to the training to learn this information and find this information. So it's all iCar, but our focus is a lot more on, this is why you need this training, this is why you need to go here. And the more we can get that word out there, like I said, the app, the big push was for technicians, but it's for everybody in the industry. I don't care if you're a production manager at an insurance company, everybody can use RTS. It's open to everyone, because we want to get that information to the right people to get these cars fixed correctly.
Yeah. I started this whole thing by saying that RTS is one of the best kept secrets in the industry. And part of the reason I feel that way is, I've been in the collision industry a very long time. And before joining iCar, I was aware of what RTS was, but really never spent a lot of time digging into what was available on there. And I think people just to get in there and understand the amount of time they can save themselves. Mm-hmm. If they're struggling to find something, don't spend hours trying to figure it out. Reach out to iCar, let us help you, because chances are your team has already answered the question once or twice, and you'll be able to lead them right to the answer without spending hours trying to find it. Just an incredible resource.
Yeah, and my team is in there every single day. They're in repair information, researching and digging into all this. And there are so many articles that they have written because they discovered something that when it came out new, and it was, you're probably not going to find it if you're just looking for a specific thing for a vehicle. They're going into all these different places and position statements and tying it all together. And we've done thousands of hours of research for you to help you. And so, we want people to utilize that and, get those cars fixed correctly.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I know that I'm very excited to see this app come out. Maybe I'm a little, partial on this, but I'm excited to see this come out. I think it's going to be a tremendous asset for the industry. I think you guys have done a great job with it. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this edition of iCars Repairers Realm. But again, for anybody that's watching this on demand, any questions you have, submit them to repairersrealm@i-car.com, and we will respond and get you an answer to those questions. Have a great day.